The night was dark and heavy, the kind of night where silence felt alive. Rain fell hard on the small wooden house that stood at the edge of the forest. Inside, a single human father named Eli Carter sat by the window, watching the storm roll across the sky. He had lived alone for many years with his little daughter, Mia. Their small farm was quiet, forgotten by most of the world, but peaceful in its own way. Eli liked it that way, away from the noise of the big colony cities where machines ruled and people no longer cared for each other. Mia sat on the floor near the fire, drawing small pictures on her tablet. She looked up with her bright eyes and said softly, "Daddy, do you think the stars can hear us when we talk?" Eli smiled, a tired smile. "Maybe, sweetheart. Maybe they listen better than most people do." Mia giggled and went back to drawing. Outside, thunder shook the ground, and a flash of lightning lit up the forest in the distance. For a moment, Eli saw something strange, a bright, falling streak of fire cutting through the black sky. It wasn't lightning. It was something else, something falling fast and hard, disappearing behind the tall trees. Eli stood quickly, his heart pounding. He had seen starships before, but this didn't look like one. It looked wild, alive, and like a comet on fire. Mia gasped, "Daddy, what was that?" "I don't know," Eli said, grabbing his coat. "But I'm going to find out." He stepped out into the storm, his boots sinking into the wet ground. The rain soaked through his jacket as he carried a flashlight and an old plasma rifle, just in case. He didn't want trouble, but on this planet, trouble often found you. The forest was thick and full of whispers. Wind howled through the leaves like voices, and strange lights flickered between the trees. Eli kept walking, following the faint smell of smoke and the strange orange glow ahead. After a few minutes, he reached a clearing, and there, in the middle of the wet grass, was something that stole his breath away. A massive creature covered in scales that glimmered even in the rain. Its wings were torn and bloody, one half buried in mud. Beside it lay a smaller shape, a tiny, trembling body with shining eyes. The creature, a dragon, a real dragon, turned its head toward Eli. Its golden eyes glowed with pain, fear, and warning. Eli froze, his finger hovering near the trigger of his rifle. But the longer he looked, the more he saw. This wasn't a monster. It was a mother trying to shield her child. The small dragon pressed against her chest, crying in a soft, broken sound. Eli lowered his weapon, his breath shaking. He had heard stories about dragons on this planet, wild creatures hunted by humans, captured for experiments, but he never thought he'd see one this close. And never like this, so helpless, so human in its pain. The mother dragon growled weakly as he took a step closer. Her wing lifted slightly as if to protect the little one. "I won't hurt you," Eli said softly, his voice trembling with both fear and pity. "I just want to help." The dragon blinked slowly, and for a brief moment, he felt something, like a soft touch inside his mind. A quiet voice, broken and tired, whispered, "Help! Child, please!" Eli's heart twisted. He looked around, knowing that if patrol drones saw this, the dragons would be hunted down and killed within hours. The government called them dangerous aliens, but right now, all he saw was a wounded mother begging for her child's life. He made his choice. He took off his coat and stepped closer through the rain. "I'll help you," he said, "but you need to trust me." The dragon's eyes flickered, and she slowly lowered her head. Eli knelt beside her, studying the gash along her neck, burned maybe from blaster fire. He didn't have time to think. He had to move fast. He wrapped the small dragon child in his coat, the little one shaking but not fighting back. Then he turned to the mother. "I'll come back for you," he promised. He ran back toward his house, the rain pouring down harder than ever. Mia was waiting by the door, her eyes wide. "Daddy, what's that?" "It's a friend," Eli said, trying to smile. "A very scared friend." He laid the small dragon near the warm fire. It whimpered softly, curling into a ball, smoke rising gently from its nostrils. Mia knelt beside it, her fear melting into wonder. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Eli looked out the window again, the forest flashing with lightning. He couldn't leave the mother dragon alone out there. He grabbed a blanket and tools, his heart racing. "I'll be back soon," he told Mia. "Stay here. And keep it warm." Eli ran back into the storm. The forest seemed darker now, as if the shadows themselves were alive. He reached the clearing again, but the dragon mother was gone. Only deep claw marks and pools of blood remained. He spun around, calling out, "Hey, I'm not your enemy." Lightning struck nearby, revealing her shape leaning against a fallen tree. She was breathing hard, smoke rising from her wounds. Eli dropped his tools and rushed forward. "Hold on," he said. "Just a little more." He tore open a medical pack, cleaning her wound with trembling hands. The dragon growled weakly but didn't strike. Instead, she looked at him with something close to trust for a moment. Man and dragon stared at each other under the stormy sky, both broken, both alone. Then she spoke again inside his mind. Faint and fading. "Child safe?" Eli nodded. "Yes, your child's safe." The dragon's body relaxed. Her breathing slowed. Eli stood over her, unsure what to do next. Thunder rolled again, and far away he heard the sound of drones. The government search had already begun. Eli looked at the sky, heart pounding. He whispered, "What have I just done?" The storm raged above. The sky burned again with flashes of light. And deep inside the forest, a single human father stood between two worlds. The world of man and the world of dragons, and he knew, from this moment on, nothing would ever be the same again. Rain still whispered on the old roof when Eli returned, carrying the dragon child in his arms. The little creature trembled, wrapped in his coat, its tiny claws gripping his sleeve. Mia gasped as the door opened, and her father stepped in, wet from the storm, his face pale. "Daddy, what happened?" she asked, running to him. Eli shut the door quickly, his breath heavy. "Quiet, Mia," he said softly. "We must not make noise tonight." He laid the small dragon on the soft rug near the fire. Its scales shimmered faintly like melted gold, its chest rising weakly with every breath. Mia knelt beside it, her big eyes filled with wonder. "It's so small," she whispered, "and so beautiful." Eli nodded, staring at the creature. "It's a child. Same as you." Mia looked up. "Then we should help it." Eli smiled faintly. "That's exactly what we'll do." He added more wood to the fire, the light dancing across the walls. The storm outside grew softer, like the planet itself was holding its breath. Eli brought warm water and gently cleaned the small dragon's wounds. It flinched but didn't resist, its glowing eyes watching him carefully. He spoke softly, as if calming a frightened bird. "You're safe now, little one." Mia handed him cloth and bandages, helping however she could. The house smelled of herbs and smoke, a strange peace filling the air. Then outside, a sound broke the silence, a low, distant rumble that didn't belong to thunder. Eli's head snapped up. He went to the window and saw faint red lights flashing beyond the forest. Drones moving in search lines. "They're looking for something," he murmured. Mia's voice trembled. "Daddy, are they looking for our friend?" Eli's chest tightened. "Yes, and if they find her, they'll take her away. Maybe worse." He walked to the barn, making sure the door locks were strong. Then he turned to Mia. "I need to go back," he said. Her eyes widened. "Back? But it's dangerous." "I can't leave her there," he said firmly. "She's hurt. And she's the mother of this little one." Mia held his arm. "Then I'll come too." Eli shook his head. "No. You must stay and keep the baby safe." The little dragon whimpered as if it understood, its eyes glowing softly like small lanterns in the dark. Eli gave it a gentle pat. "I'll bring her back," he promised. He stepped once more into the wet forest. The air was cold, thick with mist, and every sound seemed louder in the dark. He followed the path from before, moving fast, guided by the faint trail of broken branches and claw marks. At last he found her. The mother dragon lay near the edge of the stream, her body half submerged, blood mixing with rainwater. Her breath was shallow, her eyes dim. Eli dropped to his knees beside her. "You're safe now," he whispered, though he knew she couldn't understand words. But she did, not with her ears but with her mind. Her weak voice echoed in his thoughts. "Child, safe?" Eli nodded quickly. "Yes, your child's with me, warm and alive." Her eyes softened, glowing faintly in the dark. "Please, hide," the voice whispered again, fading like smoke. Eli looked around and realized she was right. Patrol drones were coming closer, red lights flashing between trees. He couldn't leave her here. He took a deep breath, wrapped her wing carefully with his rope and jacket, and pulled with all his strength. It took everything he had to drag her back through the mud. Every step was heavy, his muscles screaming, but he didn't stop. The rain washed his face as if the sky itself was crying with him. By the time he reached the barn, he could barely stand. He opened the door and let her inside. The small dragon, Lyra, cried out softly from the corner, its eyes glowing with joy. The mother lifted her head weakly and gave a low rumble. A sound of love. Mia clapped her hands in relief. She's alive, Daddy. Eli nodded, falling to his knees in exhaustion. Yes, she's alive. They worked together all night. Mia brought clean water and blankets while Eli tended to the wounds. He didn't understand dragon biology, but somehow the mother healed fast. Her scales glowed faintly where his bandages touched, and once when his hand brushed her neck, he felt warmth flow through his skin, not from fire, but from life itself. She looked at him, and again, he heard her voice in his mind, gentle but strong. Human. Kind, not all. Cruel. Eli didn't know what to say. He only nodded slowly. He had never thought of himself as kind. Only lonely, only tired. But maybe tonight, he had done something that mattered. Outside, the drones passed overhead, their red lights sweeping over the trees. Eli turned off every lamp. Whispering for silence, the dragons lay close, hidden under hay and cloth. Mia pressed her small hand into her father's. Daddy, she whispered, what if they find us? Eli looked down at her brave face. Then we run, and we never stop. The night went on slowly. Every sound made Eli's heart jump, but somehow the soldiers never came. When dawn finally arrived, soft and golden, it felt like the whole world had taken its first breath again. Sareth, the dragon mother, lifted her head, her golden eyes now stronger. Lyra climbed onto her back. Chirping happily, Eli smiled, though his body ached. He realized his home was no longer just his. It had become something else, a shelter not for one world, but for two, man and dragon, bound by danger, trust, and something even deeper, hope. Outside, the storm clouds drifted away. The first light of day touched the barn roof, and as Eli looked out at the horizon, he knew one thing for certain. The line between human and dragon had just blurred forever. The morning came quiet and golden. Soft beams of sunlight slipped through the barn's wooden cracks, touching dust that danced like little stars in the air. Eli stood at the doorway watching the dragons sleep. The mother's wings rose and fell slowly, her scales shining faintly like molten gold under the light. Beside her, the baby dragon Lyra curled against her chest, snoring softly with small sparks of smoke from her nostrils. Mia came running in, holding a bowl of warm milk and bread. Daddy, she whispered, and can they eat this? Eli smiled. I don't know, but we can try. When Mia placed the bowl near Lyra, the little dragon sniffed it, blinked, then licked the bread carefully. She made a small happy sound that melted Mia's heart. See? She likes it, the girl said with a laugh. The mother dragon opened one golden eye and watched them closely. Eli stepped closer, calm and careful. You're safe here, he said softly. The dragon blinked again, and he heard that strange voice echo in his mind, slow and tired. Safe. Home. Eli's chest tightened. He had seen many wounded creatures before, broken machines, wild beasts, but never one that spoke to him without words. This was something else, something alive and powerful yet full of sadness. He wanted to understand her story. After feeding the animals and checking the fields, he returned to the barn. The dragon mother lifted her head, her neck bandaged and her wings still torn. He sat down beside her, keeping a gentle distance. You can speak to me, can't you? He said quietly. Her eyes glowed faintly, and again he heard the soft whisper in his mind. Yes. Few. Humans here. Eli nodded slowly, trying to keep calm. My name is Eli, he said. This is my home. My daughter's name is Mia. We mean you no harm. The dragon lowered her gaze. I am Sareth, the voice said, my child. Lyra. Eli repeated the names, letting them sink into his memory. Sareth's eyes filled with something heavy. Sorrow mixed with anger. Eli asked gently, Who hurt you? There was silence for a long moment, then images flashed in his head, the bright lights, metal cages, human soldiers in armor shouting orders. He saw Sareth chained, her wings clamped, her roars echoing through a white laboratory. He saw Lyra crying in a small pod. Surrounded by scientists, Eli gasped and held his head. The visions fading like smoke, he realized what he had just seen. Her memories. Her pain. They took your kind. For experiments, he whispered. Sareth nodded weakly. They take fire. Our hearts flame. Eli felt sick. He knew about the human government's secret programs. Energy research, they called it. He had once worked near those bases before quitting everything to live off-grid. Now he understood the truth. The energy they studied came from living beings, from dragons. He clenched his fists. That's why you ran. Sareth's eyes softened. Escape, or die. Mia entered the barn quietly and sat beside Lyra, who was now awake and playful. She giggled as the little dragon tried to mimic her hand movements. Sareth's gaze followed them with a look only mothers knew. Deep love and fear. Your child, Eli said softly. She's strong. Just like you. Sareth's voice grew fainter. She is. All I have left, Eli nodded. Feeling the weight of her words, he thought about his late wife. About the long nights he spent trying to raise Mia alone. He understood what it meant to protect your child when you had nothing else. In that quiet barn, two parents from different worlds shared the same wounded heart. As the day passed, Eli worked on fixing the roof and setting traps far from the house. Not to catch animals, but to distract scanners and soldiers. He knew the patrols would come again. The drones that searched the forest were not random. They were tracking heat signatures and biological signals. If they detected dragons here, his home would burn. He couldn't let that happen. Later that evening, while Mia slept and the barn glowed with soft light, Sareth moved slowly, her tail brushing against the hay. She looked stronger now, her breathing steady. Eli sat nearby, sharpening a broken blade. You should leave soon, he said quietly. They'll come back for you. Sareth shook her head. Too weak. Lyra. Cannot fly. Eli sighed. Then we'll hide you until you can. Sareth tilted her head, surprised. You help. Why? Eli smiled sadly. Because once someone helped me when I had nowhere to go. The dragon stared at him, reading something deep in his heart, pain, loss, and the quiet courage of a man who had been alone too long. Suddenly, a loud hum broke the silence. A red beam of light swept across the field outside. Eli froze, pulling Sareth's wing down to cover the barn door. Through the cracks, he saw a patrol drone hovering low. Scanning for life, his pulse raced. The beam passed over the roof, paused, then moved on. After a tense minute, it disappeared into the forest. Eli exhaled slowly, his hands shaking. Sareth whispered, They hunt. Always hunt. He nodded. And they'll keep hunting. He looked at her, determination in his eyes. But you're not dying here. She blinked, then lowered her head in gratitude. Human heart. Strange, she murmured softly. Eli smiled faintly. Maybe that's what keeps us alive. That night, as rain returned gently and wind sang through the trees, Eli sat near the sleeping dragons, watching the firelight dance across their scales. He felt a strange peace, but also fear, the kind that comes before change. He knew tomorrow would not be easy, but for the first time in years, his house no longer felt empty. It had become a home, for both man and dragon, a place where two broken hearts had begun to heal together. Outside, beyond the hills, the red lights of human patrols glowed faintly, and somewhere deep inside the forest, machines whispered of orders and captures. War between two worlds was coming. But tonight, inside one small wooden barn, hope breathed quietly in the dark. The next morning began with silence. No birds sang, no wind moved through the trees. Eli felt it the moment he stepped outside. The air was heavy, tense like the world was holding its breath. He looked up at the sky and saw something that made his stomach twist. 3 black patrol ships hovered in the distance, their lights scanning the forest line. The soldiers were getting closer. Inside the barn, the dragons rested quietly. Sareth's wounds had begun to close, faint golden light glowing beneath her scales. Lyra, full of energy, chased dust motes through the hay while Mia laughed softly. It almost looked peaceful, like an ordinary morning between two children of different worlds. But Eli knew peace was fragile. He couldn't shake the fear that soon everything would be ripped away. When he turned on the old radio, static filled the air. Then a sharp voice came through. Attention, citizens. 2 alien creatures escaped from Research Outpost Delta 7. Classified as dangerous, report all sightings immediately. Eli froze, his hands tightening on the table. The voice continued. The fugitives are large reptilian life forms, golden scales capable of emitting high heat energy, a reward of 20,000 credits for any confirmed location. He turned off the radio fast. The bounty meant trouble, desperate people. Greedy hunters, even neighbors would start looking. Mia peeked around the corner, her face pale. Daddy, they're talking about Sareth and Lyra, aren't they? Eli nodded slowly. Yes, sweetheart, but we won't let anyone hurt them. He went to the barn again, where Sareth waited, her eyes sharp and full of worry. They hunt, she said in his mind, her telepathic voice stronger now. Yes, Eli replied, and they've told the whole colony. Sareth lowered her head. Your people want power from us, Eli frowned. Power? Sareth's wings rustled, golden sparks flashing faintly between the scales. Our fire. Hard energy? It heals, gives light, gives strength. She looked at him deeply. Humans. Take it, use it to build, destroy. Eli's mind flashed back to his old job. The energy reactors. The experiments he wasn't allowed to question. The scientists talking about biofusion cores. He had quit because it felt wrong. Now he finally understood why. You mean, your heart fire is real energy? Sareth nodded. Stolen from dragons. To power your cities. Eli sat down hard, his chest tightening with guilt. He had helped build that world without knowing what it cost. That night, as the wind howled outside, a faint knock came from the front door. Eli's heart jumped. He looked through the window and saw a man in uniform. A soldier. But not one of the patrols, it was Jonas Hale, an old friend from years ago, now working with the Colonial Defense. Eli opened the door halfway. Jonas? What are you doing here? Jonas looked nervous, his face pale from the cold. You need to listen. Eli, he whispered, glancing around. I don't have much time. Eli let him in. Closing the door fast, Jonas wiped the rain from his face. They're sweeping this area tonight. They think the fugitives came through the southern valley. Eli tried to sound calm. Fugitives? You mean those dragons? Jonas looked him straight in the eye. Don't play dumb, Eli. They'll scan every house, including yours. Eli's stomach sank. He asked quietly, Jonas, what are they going to do if they find them? Jonas hesitated. They'll be taken to the core labs. Same place that built the fusion weapons. Eli clenched his fists. You mean they'll be killed? Jonas sighed. Used, then killed. He stepped closer, his voice low. Eli, whatever you're hiding, get rid of it. Burn it, bury it, run, because once they come, nothing will survive. Eli nodded slowly, pretending to agree. But when Jonas left, his hands were already trembling with rage. He walked straight to the barn. Sareth lifted her head the moment he entered. Sensing his thoughts, they come soon, she said. Yes, he answered, and they won't stop until you're dead. He looked around the barn, at Mia sleeping beside Lyra, and made a decision. We can't hide here anymore. He went to the old storage room and pulled open a hidden hatch in the floor. Below it was a narrow tunnel, a leftover from the mining days of the early colonists. It led deep into the forest hills. Far beyond the patrol zones, he had never used it before, but now it might save them. He turned to Sareth. We'll move before dawn, Sareth blinked. You risk everything, Eli smiled faintly. I already did the moment I brought you in. Hours passed. The sky outside glowed red with searchlights and burning engines. Patrol drones moved closer, their hum growing louder. Eli packed supplies and food, water, and Mia's favorite blanket. He whispered to his sleeping daughter. We're going on a trip. My brave girl. Mia stirred, half awake. Are we running again, Daddy? Yes, he said softly, but this time we're not running alone. As they prepared to leave, Sareth looked at him one last time, her golden eyes shining with gratitude and sorrow. She placed her claw gently against his chest. Right over his heart, warmth spread through him, a deep, glowing warmth that made his vision blur. Gift, she whispered, you helped us. Now we share fire. For a moment, Eli felt something change inside him, like a spark of light settled deep within his soul. He didn't understand it, but he knew it mattered. Then, suddenly, the sound of engines roared above. A voice shouted through a speaker. This is an authorized search. Step out of the house immediately! Eli froze. Mia clung to his arm, trembling. Sareth spread her wings wide, her scales glowing bright in the darkness. No more hiding, she said, her voice like thunder inside his mind. Eli nodded, heart pounding. Then we fight smart. As the soldiers surrounded the farm, beams of red light cut through the rain. Inside the barn, a human father, his daughter, and two dragons stood together, not as strangers but as family, and in that moment, Eli knew something the soldiers could never understand. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about protecting the bond that could change everything, a bond between human heart and dragon flame. The night was alive with red light. Engines roared above the trees. and drones circled like vultures in the sky. Eli stood at the barn door, his breath shallow, his pulse loud in his ears. Inside, the dragons huddled close. Sereth's golden wings curved around her child. Lyra, while Mia clung to her father's arm. Trembling, the loudspeaker crackled again. "This is the Colonial Patrol. Step out of the structure with your hands visible." Eli looked at the girl beside him, her eyes wide with fear. "Daddy, they'll hurt them," she whispered. Eli knelt, gripping her shoulders gently. "I won't let them, Mia," he said firmly. "No matter what happens. You stay behind me." Sereth raised her head, her glowing eyes fierce. Her mind's voice entered his thoughts like thunder wrapped in sorrow. "They come for death, not mercy." Eli nodded. "I know. But if you fight, they'll call you monsters forever." Sereth's gaze softened. "If we do nothing, they take my child." Her wings tensed, the faint light beneath her scales growing brighter. Eli stepped closer and whispered, "Trust me one more time." He ran to the barn window, peeking through a crack. There were at least 6 soldiers moving across the yard, scanning the house and field with red beams. They had armored suits and heavy rifles, one of them shouted. Thermal scan picking up 2 large heat signatures. Inside the barn. Eli's heart froze. Now they'd found them. He turned to Sereth, whispering quickly, "We can't fight them head on. They'll burn the whole place down. We need to distract them." Sereth tilted her head. "How?" Eli's eyes flicked to the old generator near the back wall. "With fire," he said, "but not yours." He ran outside through the side door before the soldier saw him. The rain beat hard against his face as he moved behind the water tank. His clothes soaked. He opened the old power box and cut the cables, sparks flying. Then he poured oil from the shed across the mud trail. Leading away from the barn, he needed a way to pull them off. "Even for a few minutes. Hey!" a soldier shouted, spotting movement. Eli fired his old plasma rifle into the air. Not to kill, but to make noise. The blast tore through the night, echoing across the valley. "There! By the fence!" Half the squad turned toward him, their lights flashing. Eli ducked behind the truck as bolts of blue plasma hit the metal sides, sparks flying everywhere. "Come on! Follow me," he muttered, sprinting into the trees. He could hear their boots thundering behind him. Inside the barn, Mia held Lyra tightly. Tears in her eyes, Sereth watched the door, her wings half open, her body shaking with fury and fear. "Human father runs into storm," she whispered in her mind. Lyra whimpered, "Mama scared." Sereth bent her head low, touching the little one's nose. "Brave heart, little flame." Brave heart. A bright explosion lit the forest in the distance. Eli's trap had gone off. Flames shot high into the air, black smoke twisting into the clouds. The soldiers shouted orders, their voices breaking in the static of the radios. "Fire! The target's trying to escape north. Send the drones after him." Half the ships turned away, racing toward the burning light. Eli crawled out from under a tree, his hands shaking. He could see the barn from where he hid, still untouched. But not for long. More soldiers were coming from the south. He ran as fast as his legs could carry him, ignoring the pain. When he burst back into the yard, his chest burned from the smoke and rain. Sereth met him at the door, her golden eyes blazing. "You came back," she said, her voice soft but full of awe. "I told you I would," Eli said, coughing. "We need to go now." But before they could move, the night exploded in sound. A loud boom shook the ground as one of the drones fired a missile. The blast hit the side of the barn. Splintering the wall into pieces, Mia screamed, clutching Lyra as fire spread across the hay. Sereth roared, her voice shaking the air, her wings spreading wide despite her pain. Flames reflected in her scales. Turning her into a living torch, Eli grabbed Mia, pulling her away from falling beams. "Out the back, move," he shouted. Sereth turned her massive head toward the soldiers now entering the yard. Her eyes burned with fury, but Eli shouted over the chaos. "No, don't fight. You'll only prove them right." Sereth hesitated, her breath heavy, fire building in her throat. She looked down at Mia, who held Lyra tightly, and stopped. The child's innocent eyes calmed her rage instead of fire. She roared once, a sound so loud that the soldiers fell back, covering their ears. Then she turned and slammed her tail through the rear wall. Breaking a way out, Eli led the way, dragging Mia and Lyra into the forest behind them. The barn burned bright against the dark sky. The fire swallowed the roof, sending waves of heat through the rain. Sereth followed them, limping, her wings half spread when she looked back. Her home of safety, The first peace she had known in years was gone, but she didn't mourn. She only whispered in Eli's mind, "We live. That is enough." As they reached the edge of the woods, a loud voice echoed behind them. "Hold your fire. We need them alive." Eli turned, panting, his face covered in ash and rain. He could see the soldiers still chasing, the fire lighting their armor. Sareth leaned close, her scales glowing brighter. She looked at Eli and said with fierce calm, "You saved us once. Now we save you." Before he could answer, she spread her wings wide, fire flowing through her veins again, and unleashed a single blast into the sky. The light blinded the soldiers, their scanners shorting out from the surge. The forest glowed like sunrise for one heartbeat, then silence. Eli opened his eyes. Blinking at the smoke, Sareth stood tall again, her breath shallow but strong. Mia held Lyra tight, whispering softly, "It's okay, little one. It's okay." Eli looked at the dragon mother, nodding with deep respect. "Let's go," he said. "We still have mountains to cross." Behind them, the fire ate the barn until nothing was left. But in that fire, something new had been born. A promise, forged by courage and love between two worlds. A promise that would soon change everything. The forest was burning behind them. Smoke climbed into the night sky like black hands trying to pull down the stars. Eli ran through the mud, holding Mia close while Lyra clung to his back. Every breath burned in his chest. Every step felt like fire under his feet. Behind them, Sareth moved like a shadow of golden flame, her wings torn, her strength fading. They crossed the river that divided the valley from the mountains. Cold water bit at their legs, carrying ash and glowing embers. Sareth stumbled halfway through, the current dragging her wounded wing down. Eli turned back at once, shouting, "Hold on!" He waded through the freezing water, grabbing her scales. Pulling with all his strength, she was heavy, far heavier than anything human could lift. But something inside him, that faint spark she had given him, burned brighter. Warmth filled his arms, and somehow he found the strength to pull her to the shore. When they reached the rocks, Sareth collapsed, her chest heaving. Smoke curling from her nostrils, Mia dropped beside her, tears mixing with rain. "She's hurt again." "Daddy?" Eli knelt, brushing mud from her golden scales. "She saved us. Now we save her," Lyra whimpered, crawling close to her mother's side, her tiny claws trembling. Sareth opened one glowing eye, her voice weak in Eli's mind. "Keep moving. They will follow." Eli looked back. Through the trees, faint red lights were cutting through the smoke. The soldiers hadn't stopped, they were still coming. He turned to Mia. "We can't stay here, sweetheart, we need to climb." The mountain path was steep and wet. Rocks slipping under their boots, Sareth tried to walk but could barely stand. Eli and Mia helped her as much as they could, covering her wings with mud and branches to hide the golden glow. Every few minutes, Eli heard the faint hum of drones searching nearby. He held his breath each time, waiting in the shadows. The air was full of tension, the kind that makes the heart forget to beat. Hours passed before they reached the mountain cave. It was dark, deep and cold, but safe, at least for the moment. Eli built a small fire while Mia wrapped Lyra in her blanket. The little dragon sneezed softly, releasing a puff of blue flame that made her giggle through her tears. Sareth lay near the entrance, her body blocking the wind. Her eyes were closed, but her mind still touched Eli's faintly. "Why? Help, still?" she asked him weakly. Eli stared into the fire, his voice quiet. "Because the world has done enough wrong already. Someone has to make it right." Sareth's golden eye opened slightly. "You carry fire now," she whispered. "Heart fire lives in you." Eli looked at his hands. Faint, golden light glowed beneath his skin when he moved. He frowned in confusion. "What is it?" Sareth breathed slowly. "Gift of dragons. Bond of trust. It protects and it remembers," Eli said softly. "Then I'll use it to protect you and your child." Outside, thunder rumbled again, but this time it wasn't a storm. It was ships. The sound of heavy engines echoed off the mountain walls. Eli peeked outside and saw a large vessel hovering over the forest below, its floodlights cutting through the smoke. "They brought a dropship," he whispered. "They're not giving up," Sareth stirred, her voice low but steady. "Then we go higher." Eli shook his head. "You're too weak." She looked at him, her eyes fierce even through the pain. "Then fly with me." He didn't understand until she lifted her wing, motioning for him and Mia to climb on. Mia's mouth fell open. "Daddy, she wants us to ride." Eli hesitated. Her wings are torn. But Sareth's voice was calm. Fire heals. Trust the flame. Eli helped Mia climb onto her back, holding Lyra close, then he climbed behind her. Gripping the rough scales, the golden light beneath Sareth's wings began to glow brighter. The wind swirled around them, picking up ash and sparks. Her body tensed, and with a powerful roar she leapt from the rocks. The world dropped away beneath them for a moment. Eli's breath caught in his throat. The mountains, the forest, the burning sky, all rushed below in a blur of light and color. Mia screamed, half in fear, half in wonder. "We're flying!" Lyra squeaked with joy, spreading her tiny wings beside her mother. Sareth's wings beat hard against the air, each movement sending ripples of gold through the clouds. The pain in her body was forgotten. The fire inside her was alive again below. The soldiers fired blindly into the dark sky, plasma bolts flashing like blue lightning. But they couldn't catch her. She flew higher, faster, until the air grew thin and cold. Stars filled the night around them, endless and bright. Eli felt tears on his face, part fear, part awe. He whispered, "You're beautiful," Sareth's voice echoed faintly. "Free, finally free." When they reached the other side of the mountains, Sareth began to descend, her strength fading once more, her wings trembling from exhaustion. She landed roughly on a flat ledge covered in silver moss. Collapsing to her knees, Eli and Mia climbed off quickly. Helping her steady herself, Sareth lowered her head, breathing hard. Lyra nuzzled her cheek, chirping softly. Eli knelt beside her. "You did it. We're safe, at least for now." Sareth looked at the stars above and whispered, "Home, maybe not lost forever." Eli followed her gaze, wondering what home meant to her now. Was it the sky, the fire in her heart, or the strange family they had become? He didn't know, but he knew this. Something bigger had started tonight, something that couldn't be undone by any soldier or weapon. He sat beside her, Mia asleep in his arms. The night wind carried the scent of smoke and rain. Behind them the forest still burned, but ahead lay silence and hope. Two worlds had met in fire, but from that fire, something living had been born. Man and dragon, flesh and flame, heart and courage, bound by the same breath. And as dawn began to break over the mountain peaks, Sareth lifted her head weakly and whispered one last promise into Eli's mind. "Tomorrow, I will show you." The rest of us. Morning light spilled over the mountain peaks. Soft and golden it touched the rough rocks, the quiet moss, and the faces of those who had survived the fire. Eli stood at the cave's entrance, watching the rising sun turn the clouds into rivers of gold. Behind him, Sareth slept with her child, Lyra, curled under her wing, while Mia rested against her father's shoulder, her hair messy and her hand still clutching a corner of Lyra's blanket. For the first time in days, the sky was calm. No drones, no engines, no voices calling out orders, only silence, and the sound of the wind moving gently between the mountains. Eli breathed deeply, his body aching but alive. He turned to Sareth and whispered softly, "We made it." The dragon mother stirred, opening her golden eyes. Her voice brushed through his mind like the warmth of the morning sun. "Yes," she said slowly. "We live. Because of you." Eli shook his head. "No, because of us." Sareth blinked, studying him for a moment, her gaze deep and old. "You speak like one of the elder kin," she said quietly. "Your heart burns now, with fire that is not just human." He smiled faintly, touching his chest where he could still feel that strange warmth she had given him. "I don't understand it," he said, "but maybe I don't need to." Sareth lifted her head toward the horizon. "You will," she whispered, "today," before he could ask what she meant. A soft roar echoed across the valley, low at first, then growing louder, not from machines but from living throats. Eli stepped outside the cave, his eyes widening. There, in the distance, dark shapes moved through the mist, wings glinting like mirrors of silver and gold. Dragons, dozens of them, flying slowly through the sky, their cries mixing with the wind. Mia woke up at the sound, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy," she whispered, "look. More dragons." Lyra chirped happily, flapping her tiny wings. Sareth's eyes shone with tears. "They come," she said softly. "They heard my fire." The dragons circled overhead before one landed near the cave entrance, an enormous creature with black and red scales that shimmered like lava. His eyes were ancient and wise. He bowed his massive head toward Sareth, speaking through the air with a voice that made the rocks tremble. Sareth. Lost flame returned. Sareth lowered her head. Elder Rin, we survived. The elder's eyes moved to Eli, narrowing slightly. And the human? He asked. Why do you stand beside him? Sareth glanced at Eli, her voice steady and proud. Because he saved me when your kind would have let me die. The elder tilted his head, curious. Saved from humans? Yes, she said, from their soldiers, from their cruelty. He gave us shelter, not chains. The elder studied Eli for a long, heavy moment, then nodded slowly. Strange, he murmured. A human with fire in his soul. The other dragons landed nearby, forming a half circle around the cave. Their presence filled the air with warmth and power. Eli felt small among them, but not afraid. One by one, they lowered their heads, not in fear, but in respect. For the first time, humans and dragons stood together without war, without hate. Mia stepped forward, holding Lyra's tiny claw in her hand. Hi, she said shyly, I'm Mia, and this is my best friend. The dragons looked at the little girl, and then at the baby dragon beside her. Some smiled, some looked confused, but none were angry. The elder chuckled softly, his deep voice echoing like thunder far away. Children understand peace before their parents do. Sareth smiled at the words, then turned to Eli. The time of hiding is ending, she said. The humans will keep searching, but the truth cannot stay buried. Eli nodded. Then we tell it. All of it. He looked at the sky where smoke still hung faintly from the valley below. They think dragons are monsters, but maybe they just never learned to see the heart behind the flame. Sareth's golden eyes glowed bright. Then we will show them. Days passed. Eli worked with the dragons to build shelters hidden within the mountain caves. Mia and Lyra became inseparable, running between the rocks, playing with pebbles that glowed from dragon fire. Sareth healed slowly, her wings strong again. She flew higher each day, carrying messages to the other valleys, calling her kin back from exile soon. The mountains were alive with dragon voices again. Eli sent a signal through an old communication tower, not to the military, but to the colony's people, a message that said, the dragons are not our enemies. They are alive, they are families, and they trusted us first. At first there was silence, then whispers spread across the colonies, stories of a man who saved the last dragons, of a child who played with fire and did not burn. Some refused to believe, others began to question, and somewhere in the middle hope started to grow. One evening, as stars filled the sky again, Sareth landed beside Eli, her wings glowing faintly in the starlight. They will come again, your kind, she said. Some to hunt, some to see. Eli looked at her, smiling softly. Then we'll be ready, not with guns, but with truth. Mia ran up, holding Lyra. Mom always said kindness makes people brave. Eli nodded. She was right. He looked at Sareth. Maybe that's what this world needs, brave hearts. Not perfect ones. Sareth lowered her head until her golden eye met his. Brave heart, she said quietly, and fire heart. Both burn the same. As the night grew darker, dragons rose into the sky one by one, their bodies glowing like living constellations. Mia laughed, pointing up. Daddy, look. It's like the stars are flying. Eli wrapped an arm around her, smiling through tired eyes. No, he said softly. The stars are finally coming home. Sareth spread her wings and joined the others, her roar echoing across the valleys. Eli watched her fly higher and higher until she was only a golden spark among the heavens. And in that moment he understood. This was no longer just a story about dragons. It was about what happens when two worlds, divided by fear, choose to understand instead of destroy. Down below in the quiet mountain home, the fire burned low and gentle. The warmth reached every corner, touching the sleeping child, the small dragon, and the tired man who had once been alone. Now he wasn't, because somewhere out there, a mother dragon carried his promise across the sky that one day, humans and dragons would share the same light, the same hope, and their hearts of fire would never go out.